take the time to tell you some horror stories. I got a little time on the road, so I thought, well, shoot, I'll make a video. You know, everything, for the most part, over the years has gone pretty well. But there's always those jobs that didn't turn out too good. And it might not have nothing to do with me or our work. And in this case, it does not. And I'm going to tell you about it. So we had a customer that had a 455 Oldsmobile. And it was a very big car. I think it was an Olds 98. And he came to me, he says, hey man, I want to really pump this thing up, but I want to drive it 2 or 3 days a week, maybe every day. So I want it on pump gas. I said, sure. Let me put some thought into it. I'll get back to you. So I did. I scribbled some stuff on paper and put some prices to things and a time frame, and I got back to him and we agreed. And so I started the job. And first thing I did was stroke this 455 Olds to 500 cubic inches. No substitute for cubic inches, guys. And I put a forged steel crank in it, H-beam rods. I had a custom set of Wiscos made, double pin oilers, you know, a lot of bells and whistles. I did not use lateral or vertical gas porting. He just didn't need it for this, but I think I used a 1.2, 3 mil ring package. And of course I machined the block, I blueprinted the block actually. Everything was blueprinted off the center line of the crank. And then I bought a set of Edelbrock heads, and I completely went through them. They were really pretty. And I got a dual plane intake. Also went completely through that, porting it. Done a nice job. Then we did some sheet metal fabricated valve covers. I had the valve covers water dipped. If you guys ever seen that, it turned out really nice. We had them water dipped in carbon fiber, and then we had a clear coat spray with a tint put in it. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Worked on the oil pan. I made a custom set of headers for it. Went through the transmission, put the correct stall. Oh, the camshaft. So I got to talking to him about the camshaft, because the camshaft, as you've heard probably from a lot of people, camshaft was so important. And first thing I wanted to know was, what is your goal? What are we trying to do with this engine? Because that will directly impact my camshaft choice. And this guy was like, well, I want to smoke the tires all the time. And I remember, this car weighs close to 5,000 pounds. It's over 20 feet long. I said, okay. I said, but are you peculiar about what sound you want? How about maintenance? Do you care about adjusting valves, or do you not want to adjust valves? Do you want to have to run a certain type of oil? You know, I need to know these things, because flat tap it, we have those issues involved. And if he goes roller cam, well, that's going to jack the price up considerably. So we decided on a flat tap it cam. I was against it, but that's what he wanted to do because of the money difference. I got the cam made, custom made, with the lobes that I chose, and I did some block work in the oil galleys to increase the oiling to it, and then I had the cam nitride it, hopefully to make the lobes last a lot longer. So I had the lifter sent out to a company called Calico Coatings. They're in Denver, North Carolina. And we had everything super finished. Just really nice. It looks like chrome if you've never seen it. To cut down on any surface tension, that kind of thing. So all that was done. MSD ignition. We worked on the cooling system. We got a nice radiator. You know, we went from front to back of this car and made sure everything was dead on correct. Okay, so we got the car done. The engine ran fantastic. I mean, a torque monster, and it sounded nasty. So we got everything done. I then told him that we had to have a 3-inch exhaust, make sure everything functioned correctly. So he's like, yeah, whatever you need, that's great. He was happy. We took the car and had a 3-inch exhaust put on it with all mandrel bends. Really nice job, really nice job. So we had the car for a little while, and I also want to say we put a transmission cooler on it. We put a lot of things to keep this, so this engine would last a long time. I did all the break-in on it, the test runs. I kept it for probably a solid week after the engine was done in the car, because I didn't want any problems. I think we wound up installing a quick fuel 750. It could have took a 950, no problem. It could have took a Dominator, no problem. But for what he was wanting to do, that was fine. It had great throttle response. When you hit the gas, you could just, either it was going to tear the rear end out or the tires were going to light up immediately. And that would happen at 30 miles an hour. So, very strong. Now, remember, this video is about things that didn't turn out so great. So he kept the car for about a year and calls me back. He says, hey man, I'm happy with the car, but I think I want a little smaller cam put in it, because I think the cam that I put in, and forgive me, I'm driving, I don't remember the numbers, but I know the intake load was at a 255, and I want to say I had put it on a 258 or 260 on the exhaust. I had 50. It was somewhere around 600, 620 lift, somewhere in there. Anyways, so he's like, I think I want a little smaller cam. You know, going through drive-throughs and stuff like that, and stop and go. He lived in the city. Stop and go traffic just drove him nuts. Just because, well, I don't really know why, really, because it ran great. Anyway, I said, sure, we'll put a smaller cam in it. So he brought the car back, and we went ahead and did the cam change in the car, so we wouldn't have to pull the engine out. So I went with another one of my custom grinds, and I used the hydraulic flat tappet extreme energy lobe catalog. I chose the lobes. Anyway, had the cam made, went back through everything, changed the springs, the lifters, made sure my push rod length was, all that was good. By the way, push rods are important. I like a heavy, stiff push rod. We'll go into that later. So we got all that done. I break the engine in, get it done, and I mean, now it is crazy responsive. It idles with barely a thump, and it will spin the tires just trying to take off. I mean, and mind you, this thing had a 323 rear end gear with I think it was a 350 turbo automatic transmission. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one was. Had a 2800 stall. So, you step on the gas now, and he had these big, wide 18s, I think, was on the car. I didn't like the tires, but, you know, whatever. And that thing would boil them. It would turn them into rubber soup. So anyways, I called him up and said, hey, this thing is done. And this guy lived about 6 hours from me, so he paid a tow truck to come pick it up. And I can tell you the tow truck company and the driver's name, because the driver came and he was hungry, and I showed him where our best hamburger joint was. Anyway, the forecast was torrential downpours. And remember, he's got almost a 6 hour drive back home. So I had this car, I had all oh, this is important note. When we were done with the engine, the air cleaner stuck out of the top of the hood about 3 inches. And the guy in all that time had never put a cowl on this thing because, you know, everything was higher. Intake was taller, carb was bigger. I run a spacer. You know, I tuned all that intake stuff. So everything was tuned, had the spacer we needed, tall air cleaner. So it stuck out of the top of the hood about 3 or 4 inches. And he had this car over here by now and still had not put a cowl on it. And now it's going to ride on the back of a rollback about 6 hours back to its destination. I tell the tow truck driver it's supposed to rain. In fact, it was looking dark and black off in the distance. And I had gigantic 55-gallon trash bags. I had a tarp. I had all this stuff. And I said, here, I'm putting this in the seat. We got to wrap this thing up. And this guy looks at me and says, oh, I got it, man. Me and my girlfriend, we're going to go grab something to eat, and I'll do it then. I said, promise me. I said, if it rains, it's going to go right down in this engine. So he promised me. But anyways, his hearing comprehension wasn't too great. So he takes off, and I mean, probably an hour after he left the shop, here it come. And I mean, it was pouring rain. Now I live almost in the Atlantic Ocean, okay? And when I say torrential downpours, I'm not joking. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, oh gosh, please tell me you covered the motor. So I'm trying to call him on the phone. Come to find out, it's raining so bad where he's at, he don't bother answering the phone because he can't see where he's going. And this 500 cubic inch engine, that was about $15,000, counting the transmission work and the headers, it is sitting on the back of a rollback in torrential downpours with open air cleaner at him doing 60 miles an hour. So he gets to his destination. I call him on the phone. He finally calls me back. I'm sorry. Calls me back and he says, I said, hey man, dude, I know it rained. Did you get it covered up? He said, oh yeah, I got it covered up. Yeah, man, we pulled under a bridge and got it covered up. The owner calls me 2 days later and is cussing me out. I paid you this money and this is what you do to me. Come on, man, how can you treat me like this? I trusted you. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? His engine has seized. And he took it to another shop because he was mad. Hang on, here comes the fire truck. 1 second. The other shop called me. It was full of water. Full of water. The oil pan, the engine was hydrolocked, and he, the owner of the car, kept turning the start switch until finally it pushed it out the exhaust pipes and the car started. And once the water and oil mixed, it just locked it up. And the owner of the car was mad at me because he thought he had a cracked block. And I'm like, what? And I'm trying to get a straight story from him, and all I'm getting is just, he's going to spit in my face when he sees me, which would have been a bad idea. But nevertheless, he's cussing me out, and I felt bad for the guy. I felt terrible for the guy, but I knew what happened. And I called that tow truck driver, and I said, man, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to answer for that. If not to me, to the Lord Almighty, because you lied to me, and you costed $15,000 to that man. And I said, now he won't speak to me. He won't bring me the motor back, even though it's not my fault. I don't want some other shop working on my stuff. And the guy paid for them to rebuild it. Now, the other shop are nice. They called me. They totally understood. And they tried to explain it to the guy what happened. And I think all was well a little while afterwards. They basically, when they called, they had to knocked some lifters out of the boards because they were stuck in there from seizing up and different things like that. They rebuilt the engine pretty much the way I had it, but they did have to go oversize on a couple of things. It fried it. I mean, basically it was like not having any oil. The water and oil had mixed so bad. So, long story short, I probably rambled a little bit. The grass may seem greener sometimes, but even the best have problems. And a lot of times it's out of our control. So one of the things was when people ask me, oh, what's it like doing this for a living? I said, well, would you like babysitting? Because that's what it's like. When you build race engines and they're all over the place, and from Thursday to Sunday, your phone rings off the hook. Hey man, are you coming? Hey man, I got this. Hey man, I need this. How do I do that? What's happening? This is going on. My car won't start, and the whole time it's out of gas, or whatever. I can tell you a story about that one too. Car was out of gas. Listen, everybody has those days, as the song goes. So that's just one of a couple things that went south that I had something to do with, and it wasn't my fault. But I'm sure other engine builders have stories. If you do anything long enough, you're going to have problems. And for the ones that never make a mistake, yeah, I wouldn't make a mistake either if I never did anything. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that story. Have a great day.